also keep it locked for this question and let us know what you think, because there's been talk of all the different things that you can change or shouldn't change or won't change with this Texans team. But in trying to figure out what this offseason looks like and what the 2026 version of this team looks like, DeMeco Ryans is one of those things that we should kind of talk about. So is there anything that you'd like to see DeMeco change?
Yeah, I think that's a good question for our listeners as well, 713-572-4610 if you want to text in or of course, on YouTube as well. Comment there. Well, we got some answers, and we're going to dig in more on some of the answers that we got from Nick Caserio as we move along here today. But I did start to think as I heard this quote, this comment from DeMeco Ryans on the coaches show last night.
Shout out to Mark and John, always doing a great job.
Shout out to Mark and John, and it got me thinking about, is there anything you'd like to see DeMeco change? Figgy?
It's cut 3 from the coaches show yesterday.
I know you want to see more consistency running the football, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Mark. It starts there. We didn't run the ball well at all, right? And that's been a formula for our success. Like we've ran it and we had some success, especially in the Pittsburgh game there. And now we get in this game and we get nothing from the run game. And so if the run game isn't working, you're getting stuff. People may think, well, why are you throwing it? So, well, what's our other option?
Yeah, right.
Right. And so, you try to balance out that passing and rushing attack, but, when you see so many runs go for negative or no gain at all, you got to try to advance the football some type of way. So, we want to see our rushing game. I think just helps the passing game so much when you can run the football, but it comes to owning the line of scrimmage, right? And I think our offensive line definitely improved this year from a pass protection perspective. We got much better. Quarterback was not sacked as much as we were last year, so huge improvement in that area. We can still take strides in the running game and getting better there with up front running the ball, also the backs, all across the board. We can improve that area.
So okay, first of all, we talked. He said this before we heard from Nick Caserio, but flat out said we didn't run the ball very well.
Which makes me wonder, do you feel like we maybe allowed what was a quote that just hit us the wrong way? Did we hear that the wrong way? The idea that there isn't a concern with this offense are they saying that to mean that we're not outsizely concerned or something that we feel like we cannot address?
I mean, it was pretty clear, and I think the context of when he said that is very important. Being Nick Caserio.
Okay,
he was a little flustered there at the end with constantly being peppered about.
I guess we got to find someone better than Nico Collins.
Yeah. He was saying stuff like that, about as flustered as you'll ever hear Nick Caserio. That was about as most unguarded as you will ever hear Nick Caserio, and that's when he said it. We've never sat in our office and said the offense is a concern. Couple that with DeMeco Ryans saying, we need to improve our run game, but, we're getting better or whatever. He even said running backs at one point, across the board, need to improve, et cetera. What would you like to change, if there's anything you would like to change with DeMeco Ryans? My answer is this. I would love to see him be a little less inflexible. A little less inflexible with
so a little more flexible then. Yeah,
a little more flexible, a little less inflexible with how he wants this offense to be. He wants it to be run the ball, safe pass. We've talked about it a million times. Tweaking the offense a little bit is not going to be the end of the world here. It's not going to, be the reason you have 5 turnovers, and you had 5 turnovers anyway. So I would love to see him maybe not just be so devoted and hell bent on just run the ball, just be safe, little hitch passes, nothing too crazy. Don't put the ball in harm's way. And it got me thinking also, like we've talked about, Gerard Johnson might be one of the guys that has a target on his back, an easy mark, so to speak, to be fired, because they are going to keep Nick Caley, because they are going to, not change a whole lot, it seems like, philosophically. Why not? Why not just tweak the offense enough to be able to satisfy CJ Stroud to a degree, but also give yourself a chance to not play in these little margins in every single game? You mentioned it during the break. Like, they have to, basically they're saying, we're not going to change the offense. We're going to still be in a place where we pretty much have to be perfect.
It does feel like that.
Right?
It does feel like that's the case, right? When you and I have to think that I was working off of so that I can get this correct. But when you talk about the way that this thing goes, where you feel like we're more capable of playing deeper into January or whatever, we're not satisfied. Okay, that's not the quote I was looking for. But basically, it feels like the idea is what we did. We just need to make. Actually, I think it was when it came to defensive. I think it was Big Sarge asked. You've added to your defense. You've utilized assets for your defense. Is that something that basically you'll do on the offense? And they were like, we feel like the offense is good, right? And we feel it's less about one offensive unit, defensive unit, special teams, building a team. It just feels like the margins, as much as I think that they will try and make themselves marginally better, they're not trying to widen the margins.
Yeah.
And what the ask is just execute to a fault. Everything is execution. And if everything's execution, what it feels like you're ultimately telling me is we just need to be perfect. And if we're just perfect, everything will be great. And sure, that's right. But I don't know that we live in a world where perfection is something that is actually attainable. Yeah. Yes, you want to strive for that, but I think you should also at the same time have some level of cushion for, okay, what happens if you are not perfect? And I think that sometimes that is where my frustration comes if you are not maximizing what you are doing elsewhere.
Well, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We just heard Nick Caserio really go in depth on, guys, this is such a tough league. It's so hard. The division is getting better. Robert Saleh's, we a lot of respect for him. We saw what Liam Cohen is doing. The Colts and Steichen are always going to be a dangerous team. So on the one hand, they're talking about, man, this is really, really hard. And on the other hand is like, our game plan is to be perfect. I would love for it to happen, be perfect, every single snap. But the reality is you've got to be able to be flexible enough to maybe take some chances and widen that gap a little bit when you can.
Now, one thing I will say, because I know that we came into it, what are you looking for maybe from DeMeco when it comes to the 2026 season? And you're like, be a little bit more flexible, be willing to have an offense that, or maybe go for an offense that is a little bit more aggressive at times. I actually, in the way that the NFL is trending, I'm cool with having an offense that leans on the run. I think that this year in particular, there needed to be an appreciation and an understanding of where you were coming from. You were coming from an offensive line that was putrid in 2024, and you were trying to make strides. And kudos to them. They made strides on the offensive line. It was not a great offensive line, but it was a good enough offensive line. But with a good enough offensive line and without Joe Mixon, so you had the likes of Nick Chubb and Woody Marks, who did admirably, but again, not great, good enough. You then wanted them to be, the workhorses of this. I think that with another year, assuming that you apply yourself appropriately, you could get yourself closer to an offense where you can have workhorses to run the football. And I think that's a viable way of winning in the NFL. So I don't necessarily need them to, but I need you to push one way or the other, right? These things don't feel like they jive in my mind where you go, yeah, we've got talent, and it's, it's just about if you want to run the football. I think there's more that you need to do to get yourself to a place where execution is the only thing you talk about.
Well, where I'm going, and I want to be clear on this, I'm not saying, stop running the ball so much and throw it down the field, just chuck it. No, I'm not saying that at all. I think every offense in the NFL these days, hell, we were talking about Mike McDaniel going to the LA Chargers. Mike McDaniel loves to run the ball. He loves to run the ball inside the tackles.
But he does it in innovative ways.
Yes, but he does it in a certain way, and he also will take those chances downfield and have a lot of big-time plays that are maybe a little riskier. That's what I'm saying. Everyone needs to run the ball in the NFL. That is a given.
Sure.
And no doubt about it.
But there's different levels of running the football.
Well, not run the ball and then 3rd and 8, you're throwing a little flat route,
Sure.
Yeah.
But that, I think you're starting to get to the offensive coordinator circumstance.
We will talk. We will discuss.
Would you agree with this assertion that's come in here on the text line that from the 713 that they're trying to be perfect by being simple, which is something that works for the defense, but the offense needs more wrinkles, more pass game, things of that nature?
Yes, 713. I agree with you.
Shout out JW.
What you do, JW, is what you're saying is right. You can be just fundamentally sound, don't disguise anything, and just be ballers on the defensive side of the ball. They were. We know that
a couple
because
of years,
they were.
at 3 years season, you could go that far.
We know that because they were and they are. Offense, that doesn't play. Ask DeMeco Ryans, if you see an offense that runs the ball and is really, really safe passing the ball, would you prefer that to maybe facing, a McDaniel or some of these the Shanahans and all that? Of course, you would prefer that, and that's part of the problem. The creativity, be a little more flexible, not take crazy chances, but be willing to take more chances.
Yeah.
Shots.
I think when you mentioned chances, as we were continuing to talk about the things that you'd like to see, maybe DeMeco change or improve.
Yeah. Is there
on.
anything else?
I mean, the clear ones are obvious, where you go to game management circumstances. And here's the thing for me: I think I'm actually I have a decent amount of leeway with coaches and decision making with coaches. I think some people are like, these are the prescribed ways of going about circumstances. My general philosophy on coaching decisions is, if you can stand by, if you can give me a logical reason why, I'll let you rock. I'm very much of the school of thought. I used to have a middle school math teacher who would say, there's more than one way to cook chicken, because who's out here skinning cats, right? Yeah. But there is indeed more than one. You can bake it, you can fry it, there's a lot of different ways to get to a desired answer. I think that there's a lot of different ways you can manage games. It just feels like for DeMeco Ryans, even with that latitude that I'm giving a coach in general, it doesn't feel like there's a logical way to go about it every single way. And specifically, it doesn't feel like they have an MO. This is the way we will handle this, because we've worked through this and we've thought through it. It oftentimes feels like
rigid.
Not rigid. It feels like the opposite of rigid. Like we're just kind of picking it up as we go and then determining the logic in the moment, which it doesn't feel like is the level of prepared that I expect from DeMeco Ryans.
The other part of it, you're right, and I agree. But the other part of it, is there anything you'd like to see DeMeco change? It ties directly into what we're talking about with the offense, ties directly into what they're saying about, it's every guy. It's not, trying to deflect across the quarterback. You drafted this guy number 2 overall, CJ Stroud. You put.
I thought you were talking about someone else.
You put the franchise in his hands. Why are you afraid to trust him? Why are you afraid to trust him? Why are you?
I think they'd argue that they aren't afraid to trust him. They just have a high barrier.
Trust him with maybe the plays, the offense, the style that fits him. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they would argue that they do trust him, and that the idea is we trust you to not make mistakes. And for the most part, he didn't this year. Again, these are the arguments that they'd make. And then he had a couple of games where he did fall short, and that they would just continue to trust him in that way. I think that that's the interesting thing, is the way that they go about trust, the way that they go about team building, all of these things. Just like there's a clear disparity between what we on the outside think of the way that they go about these things, or the way they even view these things, than they do.
Yeah. No, look. Yes, you're right. But if you have this, it goes back to my analogy. The diamond in a paper bag. If I hold a paper bag in front of you and I keep telling you there's a diamond in here, there's a diamond in here, there's a diamond in this paper bag, at some point you're gonna tell me, well, show it to me. I want to see it. I don't believe you. That's what I'm saying. Like being able, it ties with the offense. My offense theory. Be the run and shoot. Just saying, show it to me a little bit. Show it to me once, twice, 3 times, whatever.
Okay. I don't disagree. I know that
they drafted a diamond, and it's in a paper bag.
I don't disagree. I've told you I think that the offense that I would prefer for CJ Stroud to play in is a Shanahan offense, but that's not where you are, and it doesn't seem like that's where you're going to be. And I trying to find those melding of those two things is going to be interesting, because that's one of the things you've been strong on. CJ Stroud talking about the likes of like Ryan Day and what they've done, and you can compare and contrast what the Ohio State CJ Stroud experience is and what they had him do from what they do right now.
They ran the ball a lot, but you know what they did? They put the game on the quarterback's shoulders. Post snap decisions, timing routes, crossing routes, getting the ball to a spot and trusting your receivers. I think that's ultimately what I'm talking about.
All right, I think there's definitely more things for DeMeco Ryans that, and the tough part about it is I don't want to undercut who DeMeco Ryans is. That's why I was trying to be very careful, because there's things that with anybody that you go, yeah, like if I ask you, hey, Jan's lovely. Are there things that you'd want her to change? I'm sure you could start rattling things off, but then you have to be very careful about the things where you go, does this change inherently who this person is?
Yeah.
I think there's some things that he can reflect on, which I know he will,
100%.
that he can do without changing who he is, with defending his players and establishing a fast and free way of them to play, and having a level of accountability that stays within in the house as opposed to guys. I think that all these things can remain the way that he coaches, while also finding ways to make himself better. And that's one of the things that I sure hope that he's able to do, elevate himself as well as this team as they head into the 2026 season.